Let's go ahead and get started, fellas. What's good, everybody? This is the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 22, Being in Denial About Reality. So, for today's podcast, I would just like to preface with this, okay? So, these are my opinions on the reality that I perceive through my experiences and through the experiences of others. If you watch any of my podcasts, I say that a few times, but I really want to hit it home when I talk about that because that is the way it is, I guess. And speaking about the way it is, the way it is, that's going to be majority of this podcast. Okay, our ideas, and concepts that I see play out in society that people are in denial of, and then not everything I will say in this podcast is going to be agreed upon, and just like anyone, there's going to be conflicting views, and that is okay because society needs conflicting views anyways, right? And along with that, like I said, okay, there's probably going to be some people that agree with me, and there's probably going to be some people that disagree with me, and like I said, that is completely fine. Okay. Um, Another thing I will say is I will be having some conversations today that that aren't that might be seen as incapable of having it on a different platform. There's people that don't want to have these conversations, and my opinion on that is refusing to have conversations on things that probably need to be talked about is very hindering to society. If you are a person right now and you are scared to make content based off of something, I feel like that is hindering to society because there's potential content that could be beneficial in helping people out, but yet it's being blocked or it's not being produced because society, I cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. I'm just willing to have the conversations because they need to be had by somebody, right? So these are and not being able to have conversations in society, like I said, hindering. It's terrible. It's terrible for society. And like I said, some of the conversations, not all the ones I'll be having today should be deemed uncomfortable, but there's going to be unflattering truths that I'll be talking about that could be perceived as uncomfortable. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, right? So the first thing I will say is, um, hmm, where do I want to start? Because I have notes in front of me, by the way. Let me just go ahead and pick which one specifically I want to talk about. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, right? So I want to talk about. Okay, yeah, finally found the sticky note. Okay, let's talk about being in denial in general. Okay, so I want to start off with this. I read this one thing when I had researched just being in denial in general. So being in denial, right? So Sigmund Freud, he postulated that denial is unconsciously choosing to push back on factual truths because to admit them would be too psychologically uncomfortable and require facing the unbearable, right? So that being said, denial or being in denial of something is a defense mechanism. And some of the ways when a person rejects facts or possible outcomes despite overwhelming evidence, they resort to things like having a blind eye, minimizing the importance, or shifting the responsibility to someone else just so they don't feel that type of way. So that's how I'm gonna preface it. Like I said, just in case you weren't here. We got 4 people in the live. If you're in here right now, I appreciate you for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment. But like I said, my preface of this podcast was I'm gonna be speaking on things that are opinions about my reality, which I would deem my reality to be the reality that we live in. And not everything I say is going to be agreed upon, and that is okay because the conversation still need to be had, whether you agree or disagree. Conversation still needs to be had. Okay. And like I said, if we are incapable of having these conversations in society, it is hindering society as a whole. I'm just gonna say that. That's how I'm gonna start it off. Okay. So first thing, um, people are in denial. People think that okay. First, these are gonna be harsh truths, like I said. So life doesn't care about how you feel. Certain people care about how you feel, but life doesn't care about how you feel, realistically speaking, right? And I feel like people think that people think that the world should feel bad for them, and I personally don't believe that you should. I feel like that's very self sabotaging behavior because life doesn't care. At the end of the day, life is ruthless. Life is brutal. Life is unfair, and that is the way it is. I did not make it up. That is the way it is. Okay, life is unfair, to say the very least. There's going to be unfortunate circumstances that come up in each of our lives that is going to seem like the odds are stacked against us, but that is that's just the way it is. That's just the way the events laid out. It's as simple as that, right? I'm going to be saying that's the way it is because this podcast is that's pretty much the way it is. Okay. All right. Another thing is life doesn't also care about your comfort. It doesn't care if you're comfortable or not. Um, there's going to be plenty of moments in life where you're going to be uncomfortable. Life is what you make it. Yes, life is what you make it to an extent, for sure. But some of those decisions are going to be conscious and unconscious decisions, and most of those, in my opinion, are going to be unconscious decisions. Um, yeah, so that's how I say. So life doesn't care about your comfort. Everybody has their own issues, but again, you should never have the mind frame of, oh yeah, life should feel bad for me. People should feel bad for me because I just like I said, I feel like in my opinion, it's self sabotaging to have that. Another thing is I'm going to talk about some unflattering truths as well. Give me a second. Yeah, I wanted to make this a point in the very beginning of the podcast. So life isn't idealistic. Okay, life is not idealistic; it's realistic. And the reason why I wanted to make this podcast is because I've seen plenty and plenty of people living in the concept in their head as an idealistic point of view, and I feel like that is only a short term fix to some of the issues that the world has, but it's not a long term fix to the issues that the world has. And some of these things I will say as well. In an idealistic world for me, I would love for it to be a different way, but I'm conscious enough of the way society is to realize that it isn't the way that I wish it to be, and that is okay. Simple as that. Okay. So through my perception, I've seen a lot of people have a hard time accepting this, as well as, like I said, accepting the harsh truths about reality in general. Like I said, reality is cutthroat. And one thing I will say, I want to start this off with this, right? And shout out to the boy Jack. I had a conversation with him the other day, checking in. Yeah, yes sir. What's good, GDP? Um, we'll start with this, right? Life, I didn't create. Like I said, I'm gonna make this a point. Right? I didn't create life, right? So these are things that are my observations. Life is sexist, whether we would like to admit it or not. Your life is sexist. You're going to be points and times where you're going to have a viewpoint that probably could be deemed as sexist, but you probably don't even think it is sexist because you probably don't even think that deep. But it is not good or bad. It is the way it is. It's as simple as that, right? My boy, like I said, shout out to my boy Jack. We had a conversation about this earlier, so I'll go ahead and give you the frame of some of what we talked about, which I like. I like the example that he used. So basically, in short, he used the example of, let's just say you are a father, right? Your son loses his virginity, and some fathers would be enthusiastic about this outcome, right? Now, if you're a father and you had a daughter and you found out that she lost her virginity, you're going to react. Most parents, most I'm not going to speak for fathers, but a lot of fathers could definitely have the perception that is different than the reaction that they were to give to their son. So that is unconsciously sexist. And another thing is another thing that is sexist, which I'll get into this. I'll get into this, right? Another point my boy Jack made. He said, I'm not gonna fight a woman, and that is sexist. It's as simple as that, right? You know, if I refuse to fight a woman, even if she's doing something bad to me, I refuse to fight her because I know that men and women are different. I know that, but I'm not going to take advantage of that woman in that way, right? Because that is a sexist point of view, and like I said, a lot of men would agree. I'm not going to put my hands on a woman. Why would I do that? Um, some would say that's a little fucked up, right? It's not equality. That perception right there is not equality, and society. And I'll say this. I'm going to say this because, like I said, it needs to be said, right? A lot of things sound good on paper, and they don't apply to reality. One of these things is that men and women are equal. We are equal, and we deserve equal rights. That has always been my stance, right? But we are not equal in the sense that we are different, and that is okay. I would say we should embrace the differences. That's always been my point of view, right? We're different, and that is okay. Embrace the differences because what women have compared to men is beautiful. They can create life. There's nothing that is comparable to that with men. Men can't create life like that, right? So women are OP, and that's that category. But when it comes to strength, biologically speaking, men are generally stronger than women, and of course, there's outliers to this. There's exceptions to the rule, which I talk about plenty of times. Is there women that are stronger than men? For sure. But generally speaking, if you have 100 men, you have 100 women, right? There's probably going to be more men out of that group that are stronger than more women out of that group, right? That's just that is not something that should be that you should not gasp at that. That's something that if you are a person that lives in reality, that should be something that you recognize, and that is okay. That's that. There's nothing wrong with having that point of view, right? And like I said, some might deem it to be sexist, some might deem it to be something else, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. That is the reality as it is, right? I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment regarding any things I'm talking about. Like I said, if you agree or disagree, let me know. I expect people to disagree, and I expect people to agree because, like I said, these things need to be said. But yeah, like I said, some things sound good on paper, but don't make sense. So I'll get into another one. Right, this is gonna be a little bit more controversial, and I'm gonna speak very carefully when I speak about this. Right. So you have, like I said, hopefully you can infer some of the things I'm about to say. Right. Right now you have a community of people that have a lot of power. Okay. And this community of people can change rules on certain things, right? So, for example, right, one of the things within this community is you had a certain person go in to compete with biological women, and that person destroyed the competition. And the reason for that person destroying the competition is not because that person worked harder than all the other women. That's not what it was. It is because there was a biological difference in the makeup of that person that gave them advantages that should not be used on women. That is my point of view, okay? That's something that sounds good on paper. Okay, you have a person who considers themselves to be of this gender. Okay, that is okay, right? But it is, in my opinion, not okay for that person to be competing with people who are not on the same level. They're not on the same playing field. That's not okay. That is not okay. Because and then obviously you see the results completely dominates that, right? And like I said, saying men are physically superior to women should not be something that gives you gasps or be controversial. This is something that exists and is okay. And like I said, like I mentioned earlier, there's outliers and they exist, of course. But that is something that sounds good on paper. Hey, you got a person that just transitioned. Okay, cool. Let them be with what they consider themselves to be. Let them go over there. Let them go compete. Whatever. Right. That sounds great on paper. That's cool. Same thing. Like I spoke about earlier about men and women. When men and women are equal, right? That sounds great on paper until you really understand and really live life and realize the fact that we are different, and that is okay. These things sound good on paper, but they do not apply to reality because the differences will be shown. There's time and time again. Of course, there's certain things where the differences won't be shown, but there's time and time again where the differences will be shown, and that is okay. You should not demonize it because it is the way it is. Like that. That's just my point of view, though. 5 people in here. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment regarding any of the things I'm talking about. Like I said, whether you agree or disagree, go ahead and leave a comment. Um, but yeah, next thing I want to get into is we'll get into this, right. Life is also racist. Okay. Um, are we? We're so obviously there's some societal influence within that, right? There's some people who are brought up to be racist, and I don't think personally, naturally, our natural state is not to be racist. Um, I think our natural state as human beings, and I'm saying I think this, but I'm sure there's some scientific background that could probably support this. Humans are judgy. Humans are judgy from the jump. Humans are judgy from the jump, and maybe that is a learned behavior. I could be wrong. It could be a learned behavior, but through my own experience, people are judgy, and obviously that kind of goes hand in hand with, I guess, racism in a way. But um, to be in denial and say racism doesn't exist right now is BS. Of course it exists. And another thing is this, right? Like I said, another thing that's being in denial of reality, which I've seen people have, right? Another thing I'll talk about is how people say, what was it? I've seen a lot of white individuals say that racism doesn't exist, and it's because they're not a victim of it, right? And it's easy to not have a perception because you live. I think I heard one person say, um, people don't recognize the privilege that is already given to them, right? That yeah, for example, like it's a privilege to live in the United States, but do you think about living in the United States all day long? No, you just live it. You're just in the existence of it, right? So, with that being said, like I said, there's going to be times and places where racism still exists, and it's not a good or a bad thing, in my opinion. Of course, an idealistic point of view, I would love for the world to not to give a damn about race, right? But, but if I had that point of view, well, I have that point of view realistically, right? But if I was in denial of reality still, then I could very well get my feelings hurt all the damn time. And that's another thing, right? With getting your feeling, okay, people avoid that pain by saying life isn't like that because that's not the way they wish it to be, right? But you have to take life at face value. That is the way it is, right? It's always been a male dominated world, like it or not. Yes. Yes, you are right. I'm gonna say you are right in that. So I'll read his comment. It's been a male-dominated world, like it or not. It is. So if it's sexist to be, for a male to be the protector, the hunter, the disciplinary from the beginning of time. That is something that there's definitely controversy to that point of view. But if you look at it from a historical point of view, um, it makes all the world of sense, right? And I'll play the devil's advocate, right? Some people would say that's a bad thing, and not only is that a bad thing, but um I'm trying to read it. Give me a second. Maybe women or other people have not been given the privilege that men have, and obviously that leads to a disadvantage later on. Which, like I said, I could see that, but for the most part, the ending of that comment, he says, generally speaking, I'll give you my point of view, right? Generally speaking, the males are the protector, they are the hunter, and they are the disciplinary. That is generally speaking the roles that you see. If you're an observer of society and you see the way history has gone, you'll see that there's a trend that men oftentimes play the roles of those things. And of course, there's women that could be the protector, that could be the hunter, that could be the disciplinary. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen often enough for me to say that it happens often, right? It can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying for the most part it doesn't happen. But yeah. Yeah, there's certain things like that people are just they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And I wouldn't say I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I will say, life doesn't care anyways. So I would just be another point of life that does not care, right? Truths are becoming extinct because feelings are getting hurt. Shake my head. Exactly right. Um, yeah, that shit, that knocked you hit it right in the nose right there, pretty much. Um, if it hurts somebody's feelings, then it's no longer the truth, and everyone. This is my perception of the way I think society thinks, right? My feelings are hurt, so take what I say as the truth because that's the way I feel. And I guess you can kind of say I'm doing the same thing on this podcast, but like I said, my reality is a lot closer to the actual reality than I would say some people's realities. That's for sure. But yeah, truths are becoming extinct for sure, and there are certain things like I had mentioned earlier, right? Men are generally speaking the more physically dominant, physically superior um, gender that exists, and I'll give you an example, right? I was called sexist at work at one of my past jobs, not the last job that I had, but one of my past jobs for saying that. And I'm like, and here's the thing, and I try to get people's opinions, and it was interesting to observe that they didn't want to admit, or they didn't want to agree or disagree with me when I could literally pull it up on my phone, actual studies, data that provide that evidence, and they still did not want to agree with me, even though I had all the data behind it, because it could be perceived as uncomfortable and hurt somebody's feelings. Like I said from the beginning of this podcast, reality does not give a goddamn about your feelings. It doesn't care. But yeah. Let me see. Another thing is there is in society a discrimination that is unavoidable. There's certain there. I feel like it's hard to have a society in which it does not exist, and obviously the only society in which that is true is the idealistic society that doesn't even exist, sadly. So, discrimination is unavoidable, right? There's going to be plenty of situations in where discrimination plays a part, but um, it is the way it is, right? I appreciate you guys for stopping by. We had pretty consistent viewers this podcast, so if you're in here right now, make sure you leave a comment. I appreciate the people that are commenting. But yeah, if you're in here, agree or disagree with what I have to say, make sure you leave a comment. Let me see. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. I wrote something down. And I feel like people also think it's okay to live in a fantasy world. Like it makes me feel good because I think the way that I think this should be, and anything that deters from that or anything that disagrees with that is wrong. Is put a label on it, and I feel like another thing with this is also this is my observation about society in general, which I could have talked about it on a different podcast, but um, people are quick to throw names and label things, and you know people are so quick to label things and also deem it to be terrible and deem it to be bad when it is could be just be seen as reality. I mean, it seems like a lot of college students now need a safe place to go when their feelings are hurt. And okay, that's your opinion. I'm not going to agree or disagree with that, right? I'm just going to I will give you my 2 cents on that, right? Um I do feel like society definitely prioritizes mental health more than ever, which I would say is definitely a benefit. Um do I feel like this generation coming up is also sensitive? Hell yes. And it is definitely the most sensitive society that has ever existed, in my opinion. Um, and that kind of goes back to, like I said, life doesn't care. And there's certain groups of people that do care, for sure. I won't say no one cares, but reality doesn't care. All right. Let me get on to my next topic. Uh, what's something else? I feel like I had more than what I wrote down as well to talk about. Give me a second. I thought I had another sticky note. All right. I don't know if I got much left, but just to reiterate on some of the things that I had mentioned, right? Um, being in denial of something is unconsciously choosing to push back on the facts or the truth, because psychologically it will lead you to a more uncomfortable and unbearable reality. So I could see that definitely playing out in society. Um, People are just not okay with some of the way things are, and instead of accepting it as that, they are, like I said, quick to just label it, and I feel like that can also be hindering for sure. Um, yeah, another thing I want to talk about is, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this as well, right? Some people are scared to have conversations about certain topics in society. Like I said, I explained it a little bit earlier. My point of view on that is, I think it's BS. I think there shouldn't be anyone that is scared to have an opinion, because these are all opinions, right? At the end of the day, most of these things are opinions that we speak about. And just because they don't align, and I could understand the business aspect of this, which is something that you also need to take into account, of course. If you're an individual, right, and you are in control of your income, then you should not be afraid to express the way you feel And of course, like I said, not everything you say is going to be right, and there's going to be times you need to correct yourself. But you gotta have your opinion. You gotta have your opinion, and it's okay to have an opinion. And I feel like, as of right now in society, it has been the least time to be okay with having an opinion. I guess if you can understand that, right? There's if you have an opinion and it's controversial, the whole world is falling down nowadays. That's been my perception. And like I mentioned earlier on another podcast, um, even though those people are probably not going to be, the masses aren't exactly going to agree with that person. Those conversations still need to be had, no matter how uncomfortable, because those conversations can push society forward. Those um, conversations can bring people to a different conscious, like they could become conscious of certain things that they weren't exactly conscious of before. And I feel like that is very valuable. Um, as a free world, I feel like that is very, very valuable. And like I said, you see nowadays where people are being censored and stuff like that, and um, you know, like I said earlier, like, hey, not everyone is going to agree, and that should be okay, because not everyone can say, not everyone can have an opinion and say the right thing always. It's literally impossible. It's literally impossible, and that's what makes an opinion in general. But like I said, some people have a hard time with comprehending these concepts for sure. All right, so going back to some of the things that I had mentioned earlier, but I did want to go ahead and talk about again. Right, life is sexist, and there's going to be certain feelings you have towards some situations that could be deemed sexist. Sometimes it's in favor of being sexist, and sometimes it's in favor of not being sexist. But those things do happen. Those things do happen, and there's no question that no matter how much society tries to equal the playing field with genders and whatever, there's always going to be. And some people would say that that is a very pessimistic point of view, but that's reality. That's reality, in my opinion. Um, there's always going to be sexist um, tendencies and stuff like that, and conversations that are going to be considered sexist. And I don't think like I said, I just think it. I think it's avoidable. It's unavoidable, in my opinion. I don't think you can really live life, have an opinion, and really um navigate through life without being sexist like that. Like, yeah, that's what I will say. It's you. I don't know if it can be done, but if it can be done, you're living a very, very carefully calculated life your entire life. That's my opinion. Another harsh reality is that life is racist. There's going to be um, people that feel some types of way about you being a certain race, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Of course, society is trying its best with try to make everything equal, but at the end of the day, there's still people that still feel some type of way about the way the system is, just because the system was built on racism, right? You see, if I'm not mistaken, majority of the people on the dollar bills that we value so much, I won't say we, the dollar bills that people value so much, most of them are damn slave owners. Let's keep it 1,000, right? Like, if I'm not mistaken, George Washington, like he owned like, and Dave Chappelle talks about this as well. He owned like 100 slaves or something like that, and he's on a dollar bill, which I think my personal opinion is, I think society's outdated in that regard, and of course I think it should be changed. There should be different people on there, of course. You're right. If your opinion doesn't match another person's opinion, it doesn't matter. It's just an opinion. Exactly. And people just can't have opinions nowadays. And another thing is people can't put their opinions aside and move on. They can't do that. Like, for example, you've seen this, and this is something that is really recent, and maybe I'm wrong, but tell me if I'm wrong, right? You see more than ever people that have opposing political views become, I don't want to be your friend anymore. I don't want to associate with you because you have those views. Even though I genuinely like your person, just because we have one opinion difference, I'm not. I don't. I all of a sudden don't want to talk to you. I think that's goofy, in my opinion, right? And like I said, I think you're avoiding the conversations that need to be had. And of course, you have an opinion right here, you have an opinion right here, and the truth always lies somewhere in the middle, right? Um, yeah, obviously it depends what it is, but for the most part, like I said, everyone should be everyone should have the content available that's going to give you both sides, both opposing views to an opinion, and shunning one because it could be deemed as hurting somebody's feelings is, I think, is just bogus in my opinion. It's just bogus. But yeah, give me a second. We had pretty consistent viewers, so if you're in here right now, like I said, make sure you leave a comment regarding some of the things I'm talking about, whether you agree or disagree. Express your opinion, please. This is a safe place. This is a safe place. Just go ahead and express your point of view. And if you're rewatching this podcast, and you agree or disagree, like I had mentioned, with some of the things I'm talking about, like I said, make sure you leave it in the comments for sure. I will definitely respond or give you my 2 cents on it as well. And going back to that, right? We can have opposing, or we can have differences in our views, which everyone has differences within their views. You're never gonna meet somebody that has exactly every single opinion that you have. You just got to be able to, recognize it first, accept it, and move on. Because, like I said, if you still like that person as their person, and just because they have a few different point of views, doesn't mean that you should all of a sudden not like them. I think that's, like I said, I think that's honestly goofy in my opinion. But like I said, at the end of the day, these are just some of my opinions, right? Hopefully, like I said, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. At the end of the day, these are my observations. Lost a few friends because of politics, bruh. Motherfuckers really act goofy and about that stuff. Exactly, exactly. This is what I'm talking about, my man. But hey, you put your pride aside, man. Put your pride aside and say, hey, man, you know what? We have different views, but at the end of the day, man, I still like your person, right? I still fuck with the person that you are, and I think it's in my opinion not mature. It's not a mature point of view. It's really not. A mature point of view, in my opinion, would say, like I said, you recognize first. You guys have opposing views, and like I said, you find a way to get past it. And I feel like it's so prevalent in the past that, like I said, you could have opposing views and still be friends. But now I think as of recently with uh, Trump and all those types of people, I feel like that's kind of, you're either on this side or on this side, and if you're not not in either side, like I said, you're just, or if you don't agree with one side or the other, like I said, you're just an outcast, or you're just, like I said, you're not friendly, right? Like I said, I think that's goofy, my opinion. But yeah, just reiterating on some of the things I talked about. Life is racist. Life is sexist. There's going to be situations in where, like I said, you could try your best. Society can try its best. And like I said, in an idealistic point of view, I would love for racism to be a thing, right? I would love for it to not be a thing. But if we're living in the reality, it is a thing, and there's a lot of people that have been a victim of this. And just because, like I said, if you're watching this and you haven't experienced racism to your face, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? You just got to be conscious of the world around you. One side has opinions. Well, take it a step up, like politics. One side has an opinion, so does the other side. You need to debate the opinions for sure, and they always can be. Like I said, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? Of course, there's going to be. And like I said, I really don't like talking about politics because honestly, if I'm gonna be honest with you, I'll be honest with everybody watching right now. I don't give a shit about politics, in my opinion, right? Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's an outdated structure. There's a lot of flaws, and instead of me having an opinion, like I said, my opinion is probably, when I did learn about um, the politics and stuff like that, right? Um, just like a lot of people's point of views, it's somewhere in the middle, right? I'm not gonna associate. There's some things I agree with the Republican point of view, and there's some things I agree with the Democratic point of view. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It is what it is. Like I said, that's the podcast. I should have just named this podcast "It Is What It Is." That's what I should have named it, man. But yeah. Going back to what I was saying, life is also sexist. There's going to be certain viewpoints that you have that probably are going to be sexist unconsciously. And like I said, I feel like some of these things are unconscious. Same with racism. I feel like, can you be unconsciously racist? Yes, I think it exists a lot more than people are willing to talk about it. I feel like I feel like certain races can potentially make some people feel some type of way. I'm not exactly speaking for myself, okay? But what I'm saying is I could see it happening, and I've heard people talk about it before, and it exists. It exists, and it exists within the reality, right? Um, Now, there's definitely things where it could be good, and there's definitely situations where it could be bad. Um, of course, the majority of it lies in it being bad, but it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. Same with sexist. Same with being sexist. Like the example that I used earlier. Let's just say you have a son and you have a daughter, and they both lose their virginity. You're probably going to feel a little bit different towards your son and your daughter for losing their virginity. Just just because you're a person and you're imperfect, and that is okay, dude. That's literally okay. That's literally okay. Um, Appreciate you guys for stopping by. We've had consistent 5 or 6 viewers for the most part of this podcast. So if you're in here right now, like I said, appreciate you for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment regarding some of the things we're talking about, and we'll get into it as well. Heem, just let you know if you're watching still, come on the podcast on Friday if you can. It'll be with Jalen as well, because I've been meaning to have y'all on, and that's a podcast everybody needs. I'll tell you that for sure. But yeah, going back to some of the things I'm talking about. People have the point of view of well, first there's two sides, right? People, the way the world actually is, and the world in which you wish it could be, right? Um, but with that being said, you can't you can't demonize life, or you can't demonize society and reality just because it's not the way you wish it to be. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of people, and through my experience, I've seen it time and time again, that are just in denial of some of the things that reality has to have. But um, and like I said, an idealistic world, some of these things I don't agree with. I'm just not talking about them. I'm talking about what actually exists, right? Um, but yeah, like I said, make sure you leave a comment though. I really appreciate the comments, because I definitely like to get your guys' point of views on some of these topics. Yeah, good stuff tonight. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it, GDP. Let me try to think. Um, yeah, I want to know your guys' point of view on the what is your point of view on not being able to have certain conversations within society, and people being scared to express their opinion on certain topics? Um, Besides the business aspect, appreciate it, appreciate it, appreciate it. Besides the business aspect, like I said, people are scared to express their opinion nowadays. Like I said, my point of view is it's kind of goofy in my opinion, but let me know. Let me know. So another thing I want to talk about, because I feel like this is a topic I like. This is a topic that I like to talk about personally. Another being in denial of reality, right? I want to go back to this, right? So men and women are different. That's okay. In my opinion, there's certain roles, and like I said, it even roles, even okay. Let me just go back, right? Even thinking that roles exist, which a lot of people unconsciously think that roles exist, right? That is sexist. Just to have that point of view, right? If you think, and like I said, I'll even use this example. I love this example, actually. I'd never used this before, but let's just say you're a woman, right? A man takes you on a date. Now, majority of women, like I said, I'm not gonna speak for all women, right? Majority of women are gonna say, you know what? The man pays for the date. That's sexist. God damn it. That's sexist right there. Now, my point of view is, of course, if the man asks you to go on the date, he should pay for that date. And my opinion, um, if you're really the man in that situation, in the interaction, you should be able to pay for everything. And if you're incapable of providing that to that woman, then you shouldn't. You just get out of the game. Just get out of the dating game. In my opinion, if you're not willing to, um, spend that money, and like I said, if you don't have the money, hey, like I said, just get out the damn game. In my opinion. Um, but like I said, that'd be considered a sexist point of view, and it would even be sexist. Let's just say, hold on, let me see. Whoever invites, exactly. That was something I was also going to talk about. But like I said, generally speaking, most men ask on the dates. That's how I view it, and that one specifically. Exactly. I would say I agree with that point of view as well. Whoever asks who on a date, like I said, the only reason I didn't mention that is because women don't really ask people on dates. But if you ask me on a date, if you ask me on a date, I'm probably not gonna even let you pay. Honestly, if I'm being, if I'm being honest with you, right? And I think if you ask my opinion, I think the frame is better set up. This is a whole different topic, but if you're a man and you have that point of view, right? The frame is set better when you pay for everything as well. Like I said, women like most women. I gotta be very careful. Most women like a provider. Okay, so with that being said, it's better off you just paying for it. Like I said, I have that point of view, and like I said, that would be nice, but I don't think I'd do it honestly. I think I would joke about it. I think I'd be like, oh yeah, you're paying, like for sure you're paying, like, oh yeah, you asked me on the date, for sure your ass is paying, for sure, but I probably still end up paying, or like contributing, at least at the very least contributing in some way. Like let's just say, and this would be more equal, right? Oh, I'll pay for it, but you pay for the tip. That's something that's something that's I think a little bit better for sure. But yeah, if you agree with that, let me know. If you disagree with that, let me know as well. I know it's kind of off topic, but um, yeah, we'll talk about men and women right now. So it's easy to have a sexist point of view in some regard, and I'm sure everyone, okay, most people have a point of view unconsciously that is sexist, and I'm sure of it. Most people have an unconscious point of view that could be perceived as racist. These things exist, but it is the way it is. It is the way it is. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna try. Okay. All right. Going back to what I was saying, right? Let's get it. Yeah, let's get back into that the men and women thing, right? Of course, I'm speaking in general terms as well. Oh my God! Hold up. Give me a second. Hold up. I just got a notification on my phone. The Grizzlies are up 77-50 against the Warriors. That's if you're a basketball fan, which I know most people probably watching this are basketball fans. That is crazy as hell. That is crazy as hell. Also, rest in peace to Celtics because they lost today as well. Um, that was a tough loss. If you watched the ending of that game, also let me know in the comments because the ending of that game was absolutely insane. Do I think the Boston Celtics should have won that game? Hell yeah. Didn't happen though, sadly. Um, but going back to what I was saying. I'm sorry to get off track, but the men and women thing, right? I would say a lot of people believe in certain types of roles, and of course, there's going to be relationships where there is life is unexpected. Facts. Um, yeah, that is facts. That is facts. Um, what was I going to say? Okay, you don't like politics. I will say this. I won't any more about politics. Okay, more about politics. You should care about politics. You should be informed about what's going on in our future. No, 100%. Like, okay, so one thing I will say is not like I'm not oblivious to the things that are going on in society. I'm not oblivious. I'm very if you couldn't tell with this podcast already, I'm very very conscious. Yes, you're right, and I agree with that. I agree with that. Right. Um, and that is the truth for a lot of people. Right. So when I say I don't care about society, it doesn't mean that I don't hear what they have to say. Of course, I hear everything. I hear everything, and I that sounds terrible. Or that sounds like it could be impossible, right? But I hear a lot of different points of views, and like I said, it's just I'm a victim of life in that regard. But what I will say is this, and which is why I mentioned it earlier. That is the viewpoint for a lot of people. My belief is this: if you make a certain amount of money, there's like I said, once you make a certain amount of money, politics don't really apply to you. They realistically don't matter because at the end of the day, you could just you can just move to a different country if you don't agree with something, or move to a different state if you don't agree with something, right? So I feel like yeah, there's definitely our future that is up for grabs, I guess. But what I will say is one vote is definitely not going to make a difference. Whether that is well, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It can make a difference, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. Voting or not voting, you're indirectly or directly affecting something, but the impact is very, very small, in my opinion. But like I said, all these things within politics, I'm very very conscious of. Like I said, I have multiple social media platforms. I would say I have a in tune point of view on some of these things. Like I said, if you couldn't tell with this podcast, I talk about a lot of things like that. So not regarding politics, but just being in tune within society. Um, but yeah, that's what I will say. I'm trying to remember what I was talking about earlier. So the men women thing, like I'd mentioned, um, hey, a lot of people believe in roles, and that would be deemed sexist. And a lot of people would also say that's okay. There's power in numbers. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And like I said, I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. Right. But like I said, I also agree. Hey, if you make a certain amount of money, it doesn't matter because like there's people that are unaffected. Elon Musk, for example, obviously he's an exception to the rule. God damn it, like he makes so much money that it doesn't matter if we go blue or go red. It doesn't matter because he's still rich as hell, and his lifestyle is not going to change. Ultimately, that's the point I want to get to. Not on Elon Musk level, not even fucking anywhere close. Because in my opinion, I think he's one of one. But I want to, of course, within my life, I want to make an abundance of money where, like I said, majority of the struggles of the average person I will not have because I have worked my ass off to the point where I don't have to struggle, have those same types of struggles and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my point of view. I want to make it to the point where my lifestyle, regardless if this country is Democratic or Republican, it doesn't matter and it won't apply to me because I just have so much money and my lifestyle is not going to change anyways. So that's my point of view. But going back to what I was saying because I keep getting off track. Um, Roles can be perceived as sexist. Some people think that's a good thing. Some people think that's a bad thing. Whatever, right? It exists. Um, I would say there's unconscious roles as well, and of course not. I'm sure. I'm sure you guys, with talking about roles, I'm sure you can probably think about. And like I said, let's think about this for a second, fellas. Right? Let's just say the typical woman roles or the typical man roles. Like I said, to even have the concept of that would be a sexist concept to have in your head. But hey, like I said, now if you think that's bad, you think that's bad. But if you think that the reality is the way it is, then it is the way it is, I guess, right? But like I said, in my opinion, of course, I believe what works, what I've seen work in my opinion, and through the experience that I've had and the experiences that I've had around people, like I said, roles, um, definitely helpful, definitely helpful. Um, yeah, yeah, helpful. That's my opinion. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about regarding that specific topic. Like I said, appreciate you guys for stopping by. We had about a consistent 5 viewers on a Wednesday, which is super solid, which I appreciate. Like I said, make sure you leave a comment regarding anything I talked about. Like I said, agree, disagree, um, or don't care. Hey, leave it in the comments. Leave it in the comments. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, give me 1 second. I want to read this. I want to read this again because, like I said, when I read this, I thought this is so profound, right? Sigmund Freud postulated that denial is unconsciously choosing to push back on factual truths because to admit them would be too psychologically uncomfortable and requiring facing the unbearable. And I hope you guys see this also prevalent within society as there's people that push back on certain, like I said, this is, like I said, it hurts their feelings. It hurts their feelings. It's unbearable to live in a reality that thinks that way. So, like I said, they create their own reality in their head and say, "Hey, that's reality," which, like I said earlier in the podcast, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? You're setting yourself up for your feelings to get hurt again. And like I mentioned, hey, it's a great, could be potentially great short-term plan, but long-term, it's probably not the route to go. And like I said, you know what? I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I really don't. And if everyone disagreed with me, at least I'm giving you an opposing view, and that's I would say that there's some power, and there's some power in that. There's some utility in that, given that the opposition's point of view for sure. But like I said, appreciate y'all for stopping by though. Where's Bree at? Where's Bree at? Come on now, where you at? I thought you was watching Bree. Come on now. And if you're watching and you didn't comment, That's not okay. That's not okay either. Um, Come on now. I got. Where my supporters? My supporters always come through. Come on now. All right. Yeah. I also want to say this again. Right. Denial is a defense mechanism. Right. When a person rejects facts or possible outcomes despite overwhelming evidence, which I that right there, I'm still here, bro. But you're not commenting. So comment, please. Appreciate it. I just think that's wow, man. That is wow. I see that all the time where I feel like people don't care about facts or people don't care about statistics. They don't care about these things. That's something that I've seen recently as well, which I don't think that's okay because where do you of course life is not there's not always it's very I don't even know what to say or think about that, but I have encountered people in my experience where I've given them the facts, I've showed them the studies and they have a different they don't agree to facts and I'm like or statistics and I'm just like through the research that people have put forth regarding some of the topics that we're talking about, what can we take as the truth? And I guess you could use the trump card of everybody's different, everybody's in their own individual person. I guess you could that's the easiest cop out that you could ever have, but that is not the way I roll within that. Like I said, there's a bunch of cop outs that you can have in conversations, but I just don't think it's not it's not helpful. It's not helpful to have these cop outs to say, well, if there's a a statistic that is in favor of your argument would be deemed more powerful or more right, if you will, right? But to say all life is um life situation is different for everybody and everybody has their own truth and like I said using a cop out I feel like that's terrible for I wouldn't say arguments but just not even confrontation either but just conversations in general right I think that's just bad I think that's just bad conversation um but yeah I've had people say that to me where like I said I could show you the facts I'll show you the statistics okay I'll show you the statistics and they would just be like and I'm like but why the hell are we even having this conversation in the first place? Yeah, but yeah. Let me know you guys' point of view on that as well because I don't think it's right for if there's a statistic in favor of your argument, I don't think anyone should be able to like eh, it doesn't mean anything. I feel like that's ridiculous, in my opinion. But I could be wrong, and like I said, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But let me know your point of view. Whether you think it's okay to use the ultimate trump card of well, life situation is different for everybody. Like I said, that's just a cop out. Yeah, and that's a part about being in denial. I feel like that's that right there, perfect. Like I said, it's just that's just being in denial in general. And some people would think that's okay. Some people also think that's not okay. But I'm definitely going to use that when I see fit. When I'm having a conversation with somebody and they are turning down the evidence and turning down um the statistics and stuff like that, I'm just gonna say, okay, it's fine. I will no longer have the conversation with you because you are in denial that these things exist. So I'm gonna save your energy. I'm gonna save my energy, and I'm just gonna shut up because the conversation is not productive conversation. Obviously, in my opinion, a conversation that's gonna be productive is going to show both point of views, and I love being able to show both point of views because if you see the way if you see the way society is going is it's always one sided. And you see that in the mass media, you see that in the news, it's always one sided, and that is not good to have a well informed opinion. A well developed opinion needs both point of views. The opposition and what you agree with. That is 100% needed. Like I said, you will have more quality people in society if you have both point of views readily available to them. If and that's something that I will do probably a little less on my own YouTube channel, which, like I said, the video's coming soon. Um, but I just I think on this podcast, I want to remain open and not as close-minded to the things that I talk about because, of course, like I said, the truth always lies somewhere in the middle. Um, but for the most part, some of these things that I talk about, I have had um, two different sides of the coin when it comes to the arguments, and I've analyzed which one, in my opinion, is stronger, and then I made my opinion based off of that. You're doing good. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I really do. Um, but yeah, all I'm trying to do is my best out here, right? Like I said, and there's people gonna be people that are gonna disagree, people that are gonna agree. Um, I want to remain. I want to express my points of view, like I said, but also be open to hearing other people's points of views as well. Um, like I said, and that's exactly why I have the option to bring people on the podcast because, like I said, I want to get multiple points of views, and um, when somebody disagrees with me, I want to be able to really have that conversation because, like I said, I feel like it's so valuable to have that conversation because you don't get that in society nowadays. You don't get you don't get on one platform both points of views on one platform. You don't, and well, I guess you can kind of have it with the politics, but I feel like the way they moderate it, it's a little unhealthy, right? I feel like Trump said last year in the debates that they should have had Joe Rogan um, come in on that and moderate it, which I think that's a great. He's great. He's great when it comes to uh, moderating it and trying to keep it very balanced and to express both points of views without one being very overbearing or for it to get out of hand. Um, like I said, that's why I have this platform because, like I said, I do want to bring on people that have opposing points of views. Um, but of course, I'm probably gonna bring on people like that are like I said, life of a champ. So people that have been in my life. Um, More often than not, there's going to be people that agree with me that come on this podcast, of course. But of course, there's also, and I hopefully have them soon, where I have people that can kind of challenge some of the point of views that I have. So yeah, and give me 1 second. All right, all right. If you're in here right now, like I said, we stayed pretty consistent. I'm going to end it off in about 7 minutes. Um, so if you want to give your last comments regarding some of the things I talked about, I appreciate it. And I'll go ahead and sum it up for the one last time. So Uh, life, life and reality don't really care about how you feel. Um, Life is cutthroat, and like I said, reality is cutthroat, and it is the way it is. Like I said, if you watch this entire podcast, you know I said that many, many times because it is very, very true. Um, Life in reality does not care about your comfort. Reality has never been idealistic; it's always been realistic, and it's okay to have the points of views that can be idealistic. Of course, some of these things that I talked about today aren't my idealistic point of view, and but I recognize that it's realistic. It's realistic, and it is the way reality is. So, not to say that some of the things that I mentioned in this podcast are my opinion. They're things I'm just expressing something, right? And I feel like people can also get that mixed up, right? I can totally express things and totally argue a point of view without it actually being my own. And I feel like people really associate that with me and or with that individual that is expressing that idea. And I feel like that can also be toxic as well. But like I said, you just gotta come to your own conclusion, I guess. But going back to what I was saying, like I said, a lot of people view the world and how it should be instead of how the world actually is. Of course, there's utility in trying to fix the world, and some things will get through and some things won't get through. But don't be in denial of some of the existence of things like uh, being sexist, being racist. Those things, idealistically, um, idealistically, those things hopefully go away, right? Realistically, they probably won't go away, right? That's a good way to say it. That's a good way to say it, right? And then also with being in denial of reality, there's a lot of things that sound great on paper, but they don't really have any real world application. And even then, the real world application doesn't exactly make 100% sense. Um, and another thing, discrimination is unavoidable. People are all flawed. People are all going to have their own opinions and their generalizations and um, their thoughts in their head that could be controversial, but it is the way it is, right? It is the way it is. And of course, a lot of these things can be credited to the upbringing that the person has, but um, recognizing that is living in reality. You can't have a completely unbiased person with everything. That's for sure. Life is filled with uncomfortable truths, and don't live in a fantasy world, because if you live in a fantasy world, your feelings are going to get hurt more. And yeah, we got a few people left here. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Like I said, if you have any final comments that you want to have on some of the things that I said, make sure you leave a comment. And I'll also leave you with one piece of advice as well. Let me just think about it real quick. All right, I got it. Right. So I'm gonna end it off with this. Right. I want you to take some time within this week, within the rest of the week. Right. So we got a few days left. I want you to really do sit down by yourself and take some time to really reflect on some of your point of views. Right. I feel like people don't take enough time to really self-reflect and um, analyze some of the ways that they feel and some of the opinions that they have. So find some time during this week, sit down with yourself, and just do some self-reflection, whether it is journaling or whether it's just thinking. Hopefully, that thinking or journaling is undistracted. But yeah, give yourself some time to think and analyze your motives as well. I feel like those things really need to be at the forefront of um, some of your thoughts. For me, I would say I'm a pretty decently introspective person, and I do definitely spend a lot of my time self-reflecting. Thankfully, I have the time to actually do it, and thankfully, that's the way that my mind thinks, which is self-reflection. So that is something that I would recommend to anyone. Um, if you're watching this, like I said, just find some time during this week, sit down by yourself, and really reflect on the things that you deem to be worth reflecting on. Because, like I said, a lot of people get caught up in life, right? A lot of people get caught up in the marathon of life, but you want to remain very in the moment. Okay, of course, you want to be future conscious and you also want to be past conscious, but you also want to be very present and in the moment in situations where you need to be present and in the moment. Um, Self reflection definitely, uh, self reflection definitely grounds you. So that's why that is my last piece of advice for the day. So I'm about to go ahead and end it off. Like I said, I appreciate y'all for stopping by. This was episode number 22 of the Life of a Champ podcast, being in denial of reality. I appreciate everyone for stopping by. And like I said, if you are rewatching this, make sure you leave a comment on some of the things that I said, and I will definitely get back to you. Until next time, I will be having a podcast Friday. Um, the topics are going to be playoff basketball. We'll probably talk about relationships and also probably music. So if any of those things interest you and you want to hear me talk about it, make sure you stay tuned in for the podcast Friday. I will be live maybe at 7. I might have to push it back a little later. Or, yeah, I might have to push it back a little later. But just want to let you know about that. But until then, like I said, make sure you self-reflect. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your night.